Hi, it's Dorothy Guining with Scrapbooking Quebec. This week I'm joining the Punched Out Thursday to Die For collaboration. We share ideas every Thursday on what to do with your punches and your dies. I'll put links to all the other participants below, so be sure to check them out. Some of them may be on vacation. Nevertheless, all the channel links will be there. So here's what I'm going to be creating in this video, an 8-photo double page spread, and I'm going to be using a bunch of different dies to cut photos, create my foundation page, and make embellishments. So here's the paper I'm using. It's from the Simple Stories Vintage Cottage Fields collection, and here are the tools. Now I've divided them into two groups. This first group here are the basics. They're for cutting photos, creating titles, and doing some layering. And in the second group that you're about to see, that's for creating my embellishments. Now, I will talk more about these tools throughout the process, and I'll list everything I'm using in the description box below in case you're interested. I'll also explain how I selected these tools, because when I started this project, I really didn't have any embellishments in mind. So here's what's on my desk. I have 2 pieces of bezel white marshmallow cardstock, but before jumping in, I want to show you my inspiration. Basically, I'm more or less scrap lifting Wendy Sue Anderson, who has a page on page 30 of Scrapbooking Cards Today of the summer edition, summer 2021 edition, and she was actually following a page maps sketch. So now I'm going to show you the paper I've selected from the Vintage Cottage Fields collection. I have a bunch of that there. And you're going to see at this point, I have 5 of my 8 photos matted. These are all 3.5 by 5 photos. Some of them are vertical, some of them are horizontal. And I do have a handful of other photos, but I'm going to cut into them with my dies later on in the process. Also on my table, I have a bunch of scraps because I will be creating my embellishments. I also have some lined paper there. That will be for my journaling box later on. And the other consumables I have are some alphas. Those are thickers. They're from a collection called Twilight. And I have some brads and chipboard from that Vintage Cottage Fields collection. So the first thing I'm going to do right now is prepare my foundation page. So for those 2 pieces of 12 by 12 bezel white marshmallow cardstock, the only thing I'm doing is adding a very narrow border to the far right end. So what I did with that polka dot paper is I cut myself a 1-inch by 12-inch strip. I adhered it behind that white cardstock. And now what I'm doing is trimming that cardstock so that it measures, once again, 12 by 12. And now what I'm going to do is cut into all of these other papers. Now when I adhere them to the page, I will write the measurements on the screen. Essentially what I'm doing here is creating a very simple border and layered photo mat that's going to span across the 2 pages. Again, I am scrap lifting Wendy Sue Anderson, and she was following a page map sketch. And I say that because I'm looking more at her page as opposed to the actual page maps sketch. So again, I'm cutting all this down. I'll put measurements on the screen a bit later on. And the polka dot paper that I cut earlier, you may have noticed I cut them in 12-inch strips. Those end up getting chopped down a little bit later on as well, because you're going to notice I'm placing them on the page here. And once I put all the other pieces on, a lot of that polka dotted paper gets covered up. So when I go to adhere it, I decide to cut it down a bit just not to waste some paper. So I'm placing my photos on the page how I plan to adhere them. And later on, like I said, I do have 3 more smaller photos that will go on this layout as well. There I go, cutting down that polka dotted paper. So I'm basically just going to kind of fudge it, adhere it to the 2 pages, and the part that goes across the middle will cover it up. So it's just going to look like a 12-inch strip, but the part that is being covered up is cut out. That's all, and I can use that beautiful paper on another layout. So I'm adhering all of this down. I do want to point out, however, you may notice I'm adhering it quite a bit towards the top. At the very end of this video, I end up moving that entire clump down about a 1/2 inch. You'll see that at the end, and that's just all part of the creation process. At this point in the process, that's what looked good to me, but when I got to the end of it, it didn't look good to me anymore, and I'll talk a bit more about that at the end. So you can see I've adhered all my foundation layers on the page, and now I'm adhering my photos. And once I get all of that down, then what I'll do is start working on the other layers. So what I want to do at this point, you're going to see me get out my big shot. And what I did off camera, actually, these photos that I wanted to trim down smaller, I already cut them. There are 3 small supporting photos, and I cut them out with some dies from Stampin' Up. They are called stitched shape dies, and each one of those square photos that you saw a moment ago is layered up with a few extra layers of cardstock just to pop them up off the page, and you'll see that better at the still shots at the end. The die I'm using now is from Elizabeth Craft Designs. It's a planner page die, so I cut myself out a planner page in that pink and black polka dot paper. That's going to be layered up under that photo on the far right. And now I'm getting out some other dies here, and those ones there are tag dies from Tim Holtz. And what I'm doing is just auditioning different scraps of lined paper. I have lined paper, graph paper, all of that stuff. I don't throw any of it out, and I use it for small journaling boxes. So I decide on a piece of lined paper. That one there is actually from Paige Evans' Go the Scenic Route. I use it quite a bit. So I cut myself out a tag, and that die set from Tim Holtz also has a little reinforcer die. So I cut one out in black, and you can see there that I have a few layers. And now what I'm going to do is adhere those 3 small photos underneath those 2 photos on the left page. And then what I'll do is adhere that planner page and the tag over on the right. So essentially I'm creating a nice layer there, a great foundation area for an embellishment cluster, also an area where I will be doing my journaling, because my journaling is going to go on the tag there. So I'm getting all that down, and then what you're going to see me get out are my alphas. So what I did was I cut out my title in advance with some dies from Pinkfresh Studio that I'm about to show you in a moment, I believe. And I'm also going to pair it up with those alphas, those thickers there. So those are the Alpha Adore collection from Pinkfresh Studio. I have the word Quebec. Again, each one of those letters there is layered up with 3 extra layers of cardstock underneath to create a chipboard letter, and my title is Downtown Quebec. So those alphas from thickers there are on wax paper as well, so I could play around with placement. And I don't know if you noticed it, I also had the year 2021, and that's going to go in the opposite corner, the bottom right, which is something I frequently do when I create embellishment clusters on a double page spread. The top left has my title, and I have a repetition in the bottom right. I'm showing you these other dies that I'm cutting out right now. So I just showed you a bunch of them there. I'll talk about them when I cut them because I'm a little bit ahead of myself here, but these are all of the dies that I selected to create embellishment clusters. And some of them had to do with my theme. These photos are of me and my husband exploring, essentially playing tourist in our own city, Quebec City, but there was nobody downtown because it was COVID. So that's kind of what my story's about. So it's kind of like an urban touristy thing that I was looking for here. So I have a cell phone die that is from Fawn. I also have a little camera die there, I think is what, no, those are the arrows from Elizabeth Craft Design. You saw a whole sheet full of a planner page and a bunch of arrows. It's a collection called Directions from Elizabeth Craft Design. Really fun for exploring. I also have a Viewmaster wheel there that I'm cutting out. All of these to me looked like kind of downtown exploring, playing tourist in your town type of embellishments. The Viewmaster as well as a camera, the selfie frame, as well as those arrows. Now these flowers that I'm cutting out now, which are from an old collection from Stampin' Up called Floral Frames, What I'm cutting out are a bunch of flowers. I'm cutting them in 2 different sizes, and you see I'm using 2 sides of the same paper. One of them is a coral color and the other is pale pink. And in the middle there, the die I used are stitched circles, which is the very same collection I used earlier for those stitched squares for those photos, an old set by Stampin' Up that I use all the time. And the reason why I'm putting flowers in here is often when I'm creating embellishment clusters, I try to have something that pertains to the theme of my page, like I explained earlier, kind of playing tourist in my own town, but I'll often use flowers as filler ins. And essentially what I'm doing is I'm looking for something kind of general to beef up my embellishment clusters. So that is why I'm adding those flowers there. So you can see I'm creating the main embellishment cluster over on the bottom right. That's where my journaling box is. I've got that selfie frame there, or whatever you call it, basically a little cell phone. I have the Viewmaster wheel, a couple flowers, an arrow, and what I'm doing in the other 2 spots, which is on the opposite page right underneath my title, and also on the top of the right-hand page, I'm creating a repetition of those embellishments as well, but smaller. They're not identical, but I'm trying to repeat color and some of the shapes. So I'm creating a visual triangle across the 2 pages. So I'm basically fooling around a lot with the pieces here, starting with the big ones as I always do, and then coming in with smaller pieces. I definitely come in and do some finishing touches here and switch up these things a little bit, but at one point I just adhere them all down to the page because I can't make decisions when everything is loose. So I'm going to speed up the film here and start adhering everything down. Now when I'm adhering this cluster here, you're going to notice that one of the flowers I do pop up on foam adhesive. That is one of the smaller flowers there. What I do want to say about these clusters, and you're going to see it at the very end of this video, there are a few things I did. Number one, as I mentioned earlier, the entire photo mat that stretches across the 2 pages, that gets moved down about a ½ inch. Then what I also did is I ended up adding 1 more flower to each one of these clusters. And you're going to see this, you're going to see what I'm doing here now, and then you're going to see what the photo looks like at the very end. Sometimes it's just like that at the end of a layout. You complete it, you think you like it, you have a look at it, and then you're not quite happy. So I'm fooling around anyway with all the little bits and pieces, finally getting to the title. I'm not going to make you watch all of this. So there you have it, my title's down. Most of my embellishment cluster is down and all the different bits and pieces. I'm coming in with these self-adhesive brads and I'm trying to add them in 3 different spots. I end up only using brads in 2 spots, but what I did do off camera, you can see, number 1, I did move that photo grouping down about a ½ inch. In each one of those clusters, I did add an extra flower just because I had them on my desk and I felt that it wasn't too overwhelming. I also added a piece of chipboard in that cluster on the right-hand page. You see the butterfly there right now. And I also added a piece of chipboard in the opposite corner on the left-hand page, that floral cluster there. And I moved around a few of the little bits and pieces. That one there is still the same, but I ended up moving the brads around a little bit. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, Scrapbooking Quebec, I would be absolutely thrilled if you did. Don't forget to check out the other channels to see who's playing along this week. I hope you're having a great summer, and I'll see you soon on YouTube, August 11th, if all goes according to my plan. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.